and welcome to Inertia on Rails. My name is Brandon Shar. I am a software developer at Bellawatt, and we at Bellawatt are the creators and maintainers of Inertia for Rails. Now, if you ended up here, you've likely heard of Inertia, but most of the resources out there are aimed at Laravel developers. And while these are great resources, and I'm sure they cover Inertia at a high level, if you're a Rails developer, it can be a lot more helpful to see Inertia used in the framework you're used to. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to touch a little bit on what Inertia is. We're not really going to talk about why to use Inertia. We're going to really focus on how to use Inertia in this video series. So if you're interested in the what or why, I would encourage you to check out InertiaJS.com, leave a message in the comments, or send me a direct message on Twitter. I would be happy to chat or even make a separate video about those, but that's not the goal of this series. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get started from absolutely nothing, and we're going to build a Rails app in Inertia. I Googled around for good ideas for an example app and landed on recipes. So that seems like a good enough foundation for what we're going to build. For this video, though, all we're going to do is get it up and running. So let's get that started. We are going to start, all I have here is a new terminal, and we're going to run Rails new. We'll call it Inertia recipes, and we're going to add a couple of extra flags. The first one is we do want Webpack, and specifically for this video, we're going to use React. It's just my preference. You could use Vue, you could use Svelte. They all work great. And we're also going to skip turbo links, and I need to remember the exact syntax for that, because we don't need turbo links with Inertia, and in fact, I suspect it would get in the way. I think it's dash skip dash turbo links. Perfect. So we're going to let this run. This will take a bit. So while this is running, we can talk a little bit about what Inertia is. So Inertia is a library to build single page apps without an API. It basically allows you to build those modern functional single page style applications, but still use backend routing, still use backend controllers, everything about the MVC experience that we already know and are used to, except for the V. For the Vue segment, we're going to substitute in front-end components written in React, Vue, Svelte, and have that entire single page app feel. I believe down here, there's an example. Here we go, the demo app. So this is a demo app that the creator, Jonathan Reininck, the creator of Inertia, made. And we'll just open it up to see how it feels. And this is an Inertia app that is entirely built in Laravel. So it's a traditional server-side backend. And we can see that it actually behaves as if it's a single page app. There's no full page refreshes. We're able to just kind of navigate around. It's very performant. And this is the kind of thing you can build with Inertia. It gives you the ability to use JavaScript components that many of us really enjoy working with, but while still having the simplicity of a modern MVC framework. I know for me personally, I started to kind of fall out of building single page apps because it became so difficult, especially with small teams, to manage both an API and a separate front-end single-page app to consume that API. And if you're dealing with a small team, even something as small as context switching between two different repos can really slow you down. But at the same time, even though there have been a lot of really cool advancements, especially in the Rails community with something like Hotwire, I like writing React components. I just think that's a great way to think and reason about the front end. And it's not something I wanted to give up. So for me, Inertia truly is the best of both worlds. So we can hop back over here. It looks like this is almost done running. Yep, Webpacker is installing right now. That is great news. And there we go. So let's cd into our new directory, and I'm going to open up VS Code. So we will get rid of iTerm and just use VS Code from here on out, so we have one screen to look at. And let's just make sure everything went okay. Let's run a Rails server. So we won't need this demo anymore. We will just fire up. There we go. We are on Rails. So how do we set up Inertia? To make sure we can see what Inertia is doing, let's just do a quick, let's commit all of this. Git add all, and we'll just say install Rails. And the only reason I'm doing that is so now our Git status is clean and we can see what happens, what we actually have to do to install Inertia. So let's hop back over to InertiaJS.com and let's take a look at the server-side installation instructions. And we're going to look at the Rails version. So that's pretty straightforward. We're just going to add an entry to our gem file for Inertia Rails, and we'll bundle install. So let's do that. Hop on over to our gem file. Let's add our new gem. Come down here, and we will bundle install. Now, installing Inertia Rails does have its own initializers. So to make sure everything works fine, we are going to go ahead and kill our running Rails server and start it back up again. So now we have the server side set up. We can look at the client side installation instructions. And there's a number of things of installing dependencies, initializing the app, making sure progress is set up. But in the Rails world, we actually have an installer script, and it is kind of in beta right now. So if you'd like to use it and you have any difficulties, please let us know in the repo. But we can take a look at that by, we're just going to run Rails T to look at a list of rake tasks we have. And if we scroll back up a little bit, yep, we will see 3. We have Inertia Rails install React, Svelte, and Vue. So as mentioned, for us, we are using React. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it down here. And let's run the installer. So what the installer is going to do for us is it's going to abstract out all of that front end. It's going to create any files we need to be created. It's going to install some Yarn packages for us. I should say, like, as I mentioned, this is in beta. So if you're doing anything atypical, if you're using NPM instead of Yarn, if your Rails app is set up a little bit differently, this install script is probably not going to work out perfectly for you. If you're interested in contributing to it, we always welcome any contributors. So we're all done. This says we can run Rails server and check out Inertia example. And you know what, just for good measure, let's restart our Rails server one more time here. And let's go back to our app and check out Inertia example. It's going to take a little bit to load because we're not running the Webpacker dev server. We'll start that up in future videos, but hello world. Okay, we're not that impressed yet, but it's nice that everything is running. Let's take a look at what the installer actually did. So if we check Git status again, we'll see we have quite a few changes. We know our gem file changed because that was us adding the Inertia Rails gem. We have a change to application layout. So what change is that? In the application layout, we have the addition of this JavaScript pack tag Inertia. So if you're familiar with Webpacker setup, what that is doing is it is loading the Inertia pack on our application layout. So all of our pages right now. So what is the Inertia pack? Let's see. And this isn't really something we need to get too far into, but it's nice to know what we're creating. And we can see that JavaScript packs inertia.jsx was created as part of the install script. So all this is doing is setting up the initialization for Inertia. It's making sure that Inertia is rendering. It is making sure that Inertia is aware of our CSRF token. And it's also setting up our Inertia progress indicators. So that is great. We obviously, to get to that Inertia example that we looked at, we must have made a change to routes. And sure enough, we did. Oops. Yep, sure enough, we did. What did we do? We added a completely normal Rails route. And this is what I mentioned. This is what makes me at least think that Inertia is so cool, that there's very little of it is unique syntax, and you'll see that there's none here. This is totally normal Rails. Get Inertia example, and we're going to route it to the Inertia underscore example controller index method. We can see down here, yep, the Inertia example controller was one that we got added. So let's take a look at it. So here is the entirety of that controller. It's using Inertia's custom renderer to render Inertia. And it has two arguments here. The first one is the name of a React component that it expects to live under JavaScript /pages. The second one is a hash of props to pass to it. So, and again, if we look down here, we can see this whole directory was added, app JavaScript pages. We take a look at that, we see our Inertia component. And this is pretty simple. H1 tags, hello, whatever name is passed down. How did name get into this? How does a prop get into an Inertia page component? Via the renderer. The renderer said name world. We can change world to YouTube, save that, refresh our page. There we have it. The last thing we should take a look at is we can see that a number of changes, some amount of changes were made to our package JSON and our yarn.lock. We're not going to look at yarn.lock because that won't be super helpful to look at, but we can see what changes were made to package JSON. And what we brought in was the Inertia library, which is required for any Inertia app. Then we brought in specifically the Inertia React library for Inertia apps, for Inertia React apps, and we brought in the InertiaJS progress indicator, which we'll see a little later. You may have noticed in the demo app we looked at, it was that nice quick line that moved across the top, just so your users have a little bit of an indication something's happening if the response from your server is a little slow. So that's it. We have set up a brand new Rails app. We have installed Inertia, and we have verified that it is fully functional. So that is a great start. We are going to leave off here, and when we jump back in, I think we'll probably start by adding authentication, and we'll start making this look a bit more like an app. Once again, I'm Brandon Shar. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, any feedback, anything at all, leave a comment below or reach out to me on Twitter @Brandon Shar. Thank you very much.